Hello, everyone, and welcome to our Spiritist Psychologist Study Group, The Inner Journey Finding Your True Self. Here, we will explore life's big questions and connect with others on the path of self discovery, guided by the teachings of Joanna de Angelis. This evening, Anahy will delve into the book Love, Unbeatable Love by Joanna de Angelis, Chapter 5, The Searching for Existential Meaning. We will have time for your questions and feel free to contribute with your insights, reflections, and questions. I now hand it over to Dr. Anahy Fonseca. Over to you, Anahy.
Thank you, Fabricio. Hello, everyone. Very nice to be here with you all again. So I'll just share the PowerPoint and we will see some thoughts by Jonah De Angelis, and then we will stop as we've done previously. We'll talk a little bit about her teachings, and then we go back to the PowerPoint as we did the other time, right, Fabrice?
Yeah.
You have to enable me to share the PowerPoint.
Okay. Is it working?
Let me see. Try it now. No, sharing is not turned on. Should I send a request?
Yeah, send a request because I'm not being able to somehow to allow you. Okay.
Yeah?
Yes.
Okay. Now. That was just that first time that something happened here, a bug in the system. So it's okay now?
Yeah.
Yeah?
You can see it clearly now.
Okay. So, as Fabricio said, that is the Inner Journey study group, Finding Your True Self. This study is inspired by the spirit, Joana de Angelis. The books are psychographed by Divaldo Pereira Franco. And this is chapter 5, The Search for Existential Meaning, from the book Love, Unbeatable Love. I don't think there is a translation to English yet, but that's the image of the book in Portuguese. So in chapter 5, Joanna says, to exist means to have life, to be part of the universe, contributing to the harmony of the cosmos. So Joanna starts really to the point, right? Because we are in these days talking a lot about expansion of consciousness all around the globe. Still this battle, let's say, between light and darkness, and we could say between, in psychological and spiritual terms, between the light of a higher consciousness within all of us and in the collective, and the shadow that still persists or can persist in many of us and in the collective, right? So we are in this point. And it's a conflict, yes, a lot of things going on, but we know through spiritist knowledge that we are evolving, and in a right moment of humankind when we are going to the next step, evolving with the planet to a next step of evolution to what we call the regenerate world. Okay, so Joanna goes straight to the point, and when she says to exist means to have life, to be part of the universe, contributing, each one of us contributing to the harmony of the cosmos. So human existence, says Joanna, is the result of various evolutionary processes shaped over time, where automatic behaviors develop into instincts and eventually evolve into higher forms of emotion and rational thought. As biological automatisms are transformed into intentional impulses, with certain exceptions remaining unaffected by conscious influence, because our biology is our biology, we are in a body, and of course, this body has automatisms, but many of them are transformed into intentional impulses during our process of evolution here in the flesh. With certain exceptions, of course, but when these automatisms are transformed into intentional impulses, so there's an intention in our impulses and our actions, the psychological entity begins to emerge. Initially, it manages inherited traits that require adjustment, systematically diminishing those of a disruptive nature while cultivating attributes that will contribute to satisfaction, enjoyment, and peace. So Joanna is saying that, okay, we inherit traits that will require adjustments. That's one of the reasons we have so many lives and we reincarnate. But systematically, they diminish these inherited traits, especially those of a disruptive nature, while we cultivate attributes that will contribute to our satisfaction, enjoyment, and peace. And then Joanna says, simultaneously, reason emerges from the haze of ignorance that impedes clear understanding, much like gravel surrounding a valuable gem, and objectives alongside existential purpose become defined. Until such awareness is achieved, primitive impulses dominate. Individuals, though human, respond instinctively without conscious action, aspire without understanding their goals, and may resort to aggression or experience discouragement due to an absence of appreciation for constructive challenge, which is essential for progress. So that's when things go wrong. Unfortunately, in our days, still many people go, travel this path because we all need awareness. As Joanna says, until such awareness, right, that bring our reason, when our reason emerges from the haze of ignorance, right? And starts going alongside with objectives, existential objectives, and purpose, right? Well defined. Then, until such time, what happens is that primitive impulses dominate. And though human, we will respond instinctively without conscious action, and we may resort to aggression or experience discouragement due to an absence of appreciation for constructive challenge, which is essential for progress. Let's see why. Let's think of why, right? And as Fabrizio has put in the WhatsApp group, Joanna at this point makes these three questions. She says, at this stage, essential questions, when we are evolving towards, questioning ourselves reasoning about existential purposes, okay? So she says that at this stage, essential questions emerge in the pursuit of existential meaning. Three questions she proposes. What is the purpose of my life? We will stop in a short while. So if you could think of these three questions, and if you want to share with us or have any questions, remember, we will be recording in this first stop to debate or to reflect together, okay? But and if you want to put anything in the chat for Fabricio to read it aloud, please do it. So Joanna asks us to make these questions. What is the purpose of my life? What motivates me to fight? How can I build the resilience necessary to achieve my objectives? So that we can reflect together, I brought to you some sentences in the chapter 18, I think, from Genesis by Allan Kardec. Genesis is one of the 5 books that are, the main books by Allan Kardec, and they developed the idea in the questioning he made to the spirits about the spiritual dimension. Okay, and Genesis has the subtitle "The Miracles and the Predictions According to Spiritism." It's a wonderful book. So this is chapter 18. Kardec says, anyone who has meditated on Spiritism and its consequences and does not limit it to the production of a few phenomena will have understood that it opens a new path to humanity and unveils the horizons of infinity. By initiating humanity into the mysteries of the invisible world, Spiritism shows humanity its true role in creation, a perpetually active role, both in the spiritual and physical states. A perpetually active role, our true role in creation, both in the spiritual and physical states. Human beings no longer walk blindly. They know where they come from, where they are going, and why they are on earth. The future reveals itself to them in its reality, stripped of the prejudices of ignorance and superstition. It is no longer a vague hope, but a palpable truth, as certain as the succession of day and night. They know that their being is not limited to a few moments of a transitory existence, that spiritual life is not interrupted by death, that they have already lived and will live again, and that nothing is lost of what they have gained in perfection. In their previous existences, they encounter the reasons for what they are today and recognize that what they are today, from what they make of themselves, they can deduce what they will one day become. So going back to Joanna's questions, I will stop here now so that we can exchange ideas. What is the purpose of my life? What motivates me to fight, to struggle, let's say? How can I build the resilience necessary to achieve my objectives? I'll stop share here and see if people want to exchange any reflections. If we have any reflections in the chats, Fabricio. If we not, can go ahead.
So anyone would like to answer was actually what is the purpose of your life? Share with the group. I want to hear all of you because I'm sure we all have an idea what should be our purpose. Or if not, maybe it's the right moment to discuss, to maybe to help ourselves to find our purpose. So come on, people, interact.
And one question, Fabrizio, one question would be interesting. Does the purpose of our lives change with the different stages of life? You know, when I'm younger, do I even question myself, what's the purpose of my life? And later on, do I keep not questioning myself about what's the purpose of my life? Or at any moment, for instance, when do you started questioning yourselves, what is the purpose of your lives? Are you still questioning yourselves? I think maybe some of you could kind of feel, oh, I don't want this to be recorded, or I don't want to share. But if you feel that you would like to share any reflections, please do it, because we all have these questions. They are archetypal, let's say. They are existential questions that lead us to the next step of evolution, even in our life cycle. You know, do we have anything in the chat, Fabricio?
I think some people are doing some comments in here. So Cynthia say, I actually start a journal for reflection before going to sleep. And what is my purpose? Was the first line. I'm glad I'm here today. Okay, Cynthia. So when you actually start writing your journal, did you get some insight what might be your purpose then? Because I think it's a subject that we might not even be clear, because that is something we develop as we spend time getting to know ourselves. It's part of the journey, right? As a part of us self-discovering, we will find our real purpose. So it's a process. So Cynthia said, on that day, I put my purpose was to undo my mental knots to be a better person. Okay, that can be a purpose. To be a better person is a purpose, right? And align with the reincarnation principle that is we reincarnate to exactly to enhance, to improve, to develop. Deborah?
Yes, I do agree with you, Anahy. I think the purpose of our life changes alongside, and then, one thing was when I was in my 20s, when I was living here in Paraíba, and then it changed when I went to Rio de Janeiro, when I moved into London. So I think it changes a little bit. And then I would say that I always had this question, alongside with me. I was always questioning myself, what's the purpose of my life? Am I in the right path? And I think maybe now in my 40s, I've started realizing that one, I'm not sure if I'm going to find it out, but I think the purpose of my life today is to become more conscious about what I do, what are the motivations behind my actions. I think that's the main thing that I try to keep it, like keep it up. And then I think it connects with question 19, I think 1919 from the Book of the Spirits, when the spirits kind of remember us how important is, before going to bed, as Cynthia was mentioning, like just reflect on our actions, see what we've done, what was right, what was wrong, and try to learn from our actions. So I think since I've been living in my 40s, this question of the Book of Spirits became really, really useful because this is about like the purpose of my life. It's about like being more conscious about what I'm doing, why I'm doing things, why I'm not doing things, learning more about myself, learning about my complex, my childhood wounds. So things like that. So I know I want to be able to solve and discover all those kind of things, but I try to live each day, uh, as a more lucid and conscious human being. So I think that's the purpose of my life, in trying to just like, okay, so what do I have to do today? So I'm going to do this today, and I'll try to be very aware and conscious about, my tasks. And I think life kind of starts to showing us, the direction. It's like that excerpt that says that once we start, walking the path reveals itself. So I think it does a lot of sense to me. So yes, I think that's the purpose of my life. So I think once become more conscious and lucid about like what I'm doing, and as Anai says, it changes. And I think also the question. So before, I think I was also just to finish. I think before I was looking for an answer, and the more I grow up, the more I realized that the questions are actually more important than the answers themselves. So as long as I keep asking myself these questions, and I think these are really, really important because they made me, motivated to just keep going and looking for, the right path, if there is one right path, because I think it's more about like, okay, what I can learn from this experience and how this learning helped me to move on towards the next step. So I think that's a little bit of this.
Thank you, Deborah. We are going to see, I brought some other sentence by Kardec and also some sentences and thoughts of Lionel Corbett, Professor Corbett, about spirituality, and has everything to do with what you are saying. So thank you. I think Andres wants to say something.
Hello, how's everybody? So what I would like to share is maybe it's also a bit strangely what I want to say now, but what is the meaning of our lives? There's only one meaning. Everybody has the same meaning, and the meaning is to remember. It brings us closer and closer to where we come from. So our parents have never asked that question because they were a nuclear family. So I was the new generation, and I think Anahy and I think Fab 10 years behind, and I think everybody in my age, we were the children of the new world. So we have different questions. We are born with something unique, not as unique as the young people now, like Deborah or who has just spoken, which is beautiful. The young people today are totally enlightened. And the question is, the purpose is not something you ever ask. The purpose is not something you ever are going to look for. The purpose is never something you will actually find because it's already in you. Stop looking, because what we have to do is only remembering. So what we basically do is the more we reincarnate, or the more we are becoming enlightened, the more we come closer to ourselves, is we are remembering who we are. And when we do that, then we know our purpose because it's already there. And I think reincarnations, it brings us closer and closer to that. So I think when we have reached our last reincarnation, we will truly remember. And remembering is all we ever need to do. Thank you.
Thank you, Andres. Fabricio, Nadia wants to. Nadia, yeah.
Hi, sorry, I don't know if my connection is good, but I would like just to go back to Deborah and Andrea's actually, because I think not only to find out the purpose in life, but understand if whatever we think our purpose in life is and what we are doing. So that's what Deborah was saying, because there may be a misalignment in what I think my purpose is and what I'm doing every day. So I may just like working, I want to do well in my job, I want to pay my mortgage, like I may be living one thing, doing one thing, thinking that my purpose is another, but really what I'm doing is not aligned with what my purpose is. And Andrea said like to remember. So the less worried we are, if we are doing our best every day, and the more aligned we are with God and ourselves, I think that purpose will come to light and guide us, and then we are not going to be so distracted doing things that in it actually do not go with what the purpose is. And I feel sometimes that way, that I'm thinking my purpose is one thing, I'm sure of what my purpose is, but actually I'm doing something else different, and therefore completely, misaligned.
It's great, Nadia, that you thought about this word, misaligned, because I'm listening to you guys and Andres and just remembering and the concepts, Jung concepts of the self, capital S, right? So the higher self, we could say, and the ego. So when I'm doing something that it's to use Nadia's word is misaligned with the self, the higher self, right? This study group is the name Inner Journey. So we all, I think Joanna is asking us to align the ego with the higher self so that we can remember, as Andrea said, who we truly are in this life and act more in this life of ours, in this path that we are, according to who we really are. Jung says that the objective psyche, as he calls the inner world, where we have, where let's say the self, the higher self, the deeper unconscious, where the higher self is, right? This transpersonal dimension of the psyche would be where we truly are what we are. So he calls the objective psyche, because the ego, our personality, would be the subjective psyche, who we think and we learn that we are here through our parents, our experience. So great. Thanks, Nadia, because I think this word that you brought, alignment and misalignment, it's great for us to think about this inner journey and how we are aligned to our higher self that knows the purpose of this life that we are living. As Jung says, our personal myth, what I have, come here to do. Does anybody wants to say anything else before we go back to the PowerPoint?
I want to say
Sylvia?
something quickly and then pass to Sylvia. Anahy, so I think sometimes because we seem to have that constant interaction between the ego and the self, and sometimes I think maybe we confused with the purpose of our life with our ambition. Because I think ambition might be dictated by our ego. Oh, I want to be a successful man. I want to be a teacher. I want to be this. I want to be that. And that can be totally driven by our egos and not connection with ourselves whatsoever. But when you talk about the purpose of the life, it's about us connecting with ourselves and find out what actually that purpose is in our own self, which is within ourselves. And then connect with what Andrea was saying, because it's in us, we just need to remember it. It's not. I think Joanna somewhere on the book that she say it's not someone. It's not going to be something that someone is going to tell us, because that purpose is very individual and specific to that soul. And when we will wake ourselves, when we wake our spirit, then we will remember what we truly are. Right?
Yes, exactly. So Jung called this process individuation, as you know, remembering, to use Andrea's words, who we truly are and becoming whole, as he said, right, in this life. I think it's quite interesting because you said, Fabrice, about ambition. And the book is Love, Unbeatable Love. And ambition and power are all from the ego. Okay, people. We say, I have already said that, I think, but it's not that is not hate, that it's the opposite of love. Hate is love, is the disease, let's say, of love. But it's power, that it's the opposite of love. Because love, the love that we are talking about, is not passion, is love. So that Jonah talks about is the force of creation that interconnects everything. So it's very, very powerful. As Andrea said, since we all come from the source, let's say, from the creator, so we all have this capacity for love, for creation, right? Some people, I have been listening to some podcasts, and some people are kind of, I understand, because kind of doing some mixture of things. And they say, oh, so we are all gods. So I, so we are all caught in this prison and we are all gods and we forgot that we are all gods. So when you go to this very straight interpretation, remember, people, it's all about the ego, and then you get to inflation of the ego, right? And we leave that humility in a sense, not that we are not important. No, it's the opposite. We are, each one of us is very, very important. It's as important as anyone else because we are all part of the source, right? But we know that this knowledge, as Andrew said, is in the higher self, Jung's self, capital S. So it's always humble, never thinks it's better than anyone else. And if you are mature enough, your ego is mature enough, is resilient, that it's one of Joanna's questions. How can I build the necessary resilience to achieve my objectives? Of course, she's not talking about the ego. We get, Jonas knows much better than any of us. She has been studying 50 years or more, right? Fabrizio Divaldo said in spiritual realms, with all the knowledge and books that we don't have, we are not able to get in that wonderful library or libraries in the spiritual realms, but and of course with her development and all of that. But what I mean to say is that of course to for us in psychology and psychiatry, resilience has to do with a strong ego, we would say, and trying to understand our conflicts, our mechanisms of defense of the ego and all of that. So when we do this and we mature in the ego sense, then we are going to be resilient and, face more challenges of life and things like that. That's in the ego part, and a lot of psychologists and psychiatrists only think about that because for them, consciousness is the ego, okay? But of course, here we are going deeper in understanding with Joanna, Jung, and other authors, and Kardec, and other spiritual teachers, that we are much more than that. This is only our personality of this life in this body with these experiences, and that who we truly are is in the objective psyche and the self, with all the the archetypes, all of our spiritual and psychological experience. So ambition, and that's why where many people get lost, ambition and the need of power to feel better than any other, to have more power, to have more of material things, is totally, totally from the ego. And of course, if some spirits are still very proud, very hard, very against evolution or whatever their reasons, okay, very underdeveloped in this sense, moral sense, we are going to be seeing more of this. Of course, they can go back to spiritual dimensions with this hardness, with this darkness, with these low vibrations that they carry from life to life many times, unfortunately. But in this experience here, when people get caught in ambition and in power, and this kind of, as you said, Fabrizio, of course, this is the ego stuff. And this makes us, go further apart from the knowledge that we have inside of ourselves, deep inside ourselves, in our higher self, about what really love, means. But Sylvia and Andres want to say something.
Sylvia?
So many things have been said already that my mind's already going somewhere else. Um, I have to give you notes. Sorry, I can't speak very well. Um, I was just thinking that the question that Joanna asked, what's the purpose of my life? And it's very interesting that she should ask this question as well, and we should always think about it too. Because I think if we think in terms of spirituality, of our incarnation, we came here to Earth already with a purpose. So in a way, we had already to coming to this incarnation, we had already accepted a work to do, some learning, some readdressing old wrongs. So it's the purpose is already within us. We already know. But I think when we get here, we forget. We get so involved in things. I think Nadia said something that was very interesting, and I think that's a kind of worry for a lot of people paying the mortgage, because of course, we need a place to live. And we get in the beginning, is studying, is career, what am I going to be? I needed to be a professional, and then you have, oh, you have to pay my mortgage, and it's always something, and we forget that part of the spiritual part of ourselves, I think. It, we get lost in ourselves. And it's interesting because the subject reminds me of some quotes that I have from Nietzsche, that he says, to live is to suffer, to survive is to find some meaning in the suffering. And he also says that if you have a why to live, you can bear almost anything, which I find so important, because that goes into the purpose of life. And he said, we love life not because we are used to living, but because we are used to loving. So it's almost like the purpose of our life is to learn to love one another. And I think this is what connects us to our higher self, which is the divine within us. I see our higher self as the divine that exists within each one of us. And I always have this, I always need the images to understand things. And to me, I think we are like this diamond, that is found in a rock. And unless you are an expert in gems and things, you won't recognize it. But when it's only breaking, because only diamond can only be polished by diamond, because it's the hardest thing there is, and we can only be polished by other people, by the experiences we have and we share with everyone else in life, the sufferings we go through, the joys, and then when you take all this out, we have the light within that will shine, and I think that's the purpose. And I think we get lost because the purpose we already know. We have already accepted that mission to do it. So it's, I think, one of the wonderful things about being here is that we can share and say, oh yes, I have a purpose. I know, what is it? To be better, to be loving, to be forgiving. I think each one of us have one thing that we needed to learn from the past, and to, some is forgiveness, to some is let go of pride, And that's it. That's it. It's fun. It's fun to live,
Thank you,
isn't it?
Sylvia. Yeah.
Andreas?
Oh yes, it's like Sylvia says, a lot has been said, so my stuff is kind of a little bit lost now, but I will try to remember. I made some notes very quickly, but as I said previously, I think before, that we're here all for one thing and one thing only. Collective, it's everybody here on the screen and everybody in the universe.
mais longe, apitou. Que o ônibus que tá perto não
And,
avisa. Não,
and
eu
One
tô
second.
frente.
1 second. Sorry, Andrea, go ahead.
And this is soul growth. So soul growth comes through, and it's instigated through many reincarnations. So we have the opportunity to learn. But the soul is really only the viewer in the body. The soul has no really function. It cannot do anything without the body or the mind. Often when we are worn out or we die early or we are aging very fast, it's because we have forgotten about the soul. So there's a universal law which says when the mind and the body wants to do it by themselves, the soul cannot interfere. So this can be very strenuous to the soul, to the mind and the body. But if we invite the soul is there to experience itself through us. So we are really the soul's tool. So when we have a job or when we are in the wrong relationship or when we become materialistic, it's the body and the mind, it's not the soul experiencing itself. But we get distracted or carried away. And then, when we have too much of it, we then go back to religion or back to ourselves, or we're going to a Reiki, or we're going to somebody talking to us, and, we find God, or somebody finds the beach, or somebody finds, often we're experiencing it through depression. We're experiencing through not enjoying what we're doing anymore. We're experiencing it through self-loath and self-degradation and addiction. A lot of addictions like alcohol, sex. We're abusing what we got. We're betraying the relationship we're in. We're having affairs. We become destructive to ourselves because what we are and what we became, we actually do not like anymore. But we're not really conscious of it. But we're becoming the destroyer. So we create ourselves and destroy ourselves. But that's not the soul doing any of that. That's only because we're not connected to the soul. So, what is the relationship truly here? It's soul, body, spirit. So don't be scared of what you do because you have never missed your calling. It's just you have allowed to experience everything physically and psychologically, of course, or body, mind. But when the spirit comes in, that is when she truly grows. So don't mistaken that when you do mistakes or when you suffer, the soul doesn't grow. Wow, it grows even more. So it actually loves you for that. But the person who experiences truly the suffering is actually us, the person who is the experiencer. You understand? But we must not forget the soul has to grow. So when Anahy talks about, and I love that saying, the ego purely it's materialism. But when we create and when we do something, and when we're really good at something, we need to reward ourselves. So we need to go out and buy ourselves an ice cream or buy ourselves a jacket or, book ourselves holidays. So it's a reward. Or, I sometimes think, I want to go out and buy myself something really expensive, but only because I did a good thing for myself. I helped other people. So I go and maybe want to buy myself a watch, or I want to buy myself a new jacket, or, we have a right to be selfish. We have a right to be self-centered. We have a right to put ourselves first sometimes, because if we don't reward ourselves, how can we reward others or be there for others? I think it's an interplay between, an interplay between the soul, the body, and mind. So there's this dance going on permanently, until we get out of that car, which is the body and the mind. But we don't remember that part, right? Now we're making it so important, but when we get out, we don't remember the body and the mind. We only remember the soul. And so this is what I would love to give as a kind of a salvation in what we're experiencing now. When we go, what is important will be taken with anyway. So, but I believe that we truly find out who we are, what is our calling, is after many, many, many reincarnations, when we're coming closer and closer to ourselves. Thanks.
Thanks, Andres. I think because of the time, we have Nadia, and then we should stop and go back to the PowerPoint, okay?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Nadia?
You're on mute, Nadia.
I'll try to be as brief as possible, but one thing that helped me, and Anahy, I'm not sure what you think, is not very scientific, this author, Joe Dispenza, but everyone is talking about soul and body. And he explained in his way of talking that the way that I interpreted it is that we know that the spirit is the real self, and the body, actually the illnesses, is all reflection of the, what's going on in the spirit. However, what he puts is that we identify ourselves so hard with the body and the environment, then actually we start doing the opposite. So your spirit is like thinking you are the body, and everything that the body needs, then it becomes your purpose, even though you think that your purpose is like, oh, okay, I want to be a better person, I want to help others. But actually what we are really doing is like the identification with the material is just so intense that it goes the other way around. In my spirit feels like desperate because things are not going the way I want and things like that. But because in the material world may not be the way I want, but uh, it's all right, actually. Even if things are not going the way I want, it is right. That's the spirit. The eyes of the body, that's not the way it's supposed to be. And I think we have to de-identify, though we have to respect this divine gift, which is the body that we need to live here. But we need to de-identify a little bit and say, am I doing the best I can? Yes. Therefore, everything else is going to work out. That's it. Sorry, I don't know. Like, actually, I would like your opinion about this author, but
Yeah, Joe Dispenza is a medical doctor. I don't think he's a psychiatrist. Do you know?
no. He's
Yeah.
a chiropractor, and he does like some on a side neuroscience, psychology, and he talks about
Yeah,
quantum. Yeah,
yeah.
not like academia, let's say. And that's why I mentioned that I'm mentioning, but with a grain of salt. But I like the way that he said,
Yeah, many people like, and he does some meditations also, things like that. I think it's cool. I think it depends on how each one feels. The thing is that, and I think maybe for many people, I think he's not considering the different levels of evolution, because not all spirits are in the same levels of evolution. So when we say, though, sometimes we are over identified with the body, for instance, and we have different experiences, right? So, but for many people, for instance, we have one here in Brazil, Chico Xavier, right? The medium. He would, of course, like Andrea said, at some point, if he was, and we know he was a very developed soul, because it would be impossible to have all those kind of mediumships, all of them, without being, and, psychographing more than 500 books from different authors, and not having very high moral development and things like that. So, of course, people from other countries don't even know Chico Xavier, that even he existed, and even Divaldo with Joanna, many people don't even know about that. And I know that they don't know even in academia, because a lot of medical doctors in Brazilian, the Medical Spirits Association, we do research. We know we study the books from the medical point of view, and we know that most of the academia and scientific world don't know about this, what's going on in Brazil, and the books and all the mediumships and anomalous experiences from different types that happen all around the globe. But here, for some reason, in Brazil, it's very, very common in the non-clinical population. So when Joe Dispenza says the way, yeah, so sometimes it's the other way around, and the spirit can be very identified with the body. I agree, this happens, but I think also it should be said that it's different. And of course, maybe he wouldn't say that because he's doing a lot of podcasts and lives. So it's not the purpose many times to study as we are doing, because then you are going to say, oh, but we have to remember that even in the spirits, in the spiritual dimension, there are different levels of evolution. So I can be here reincarnated here and forget. Of course, we all kind of forget who we are, but maybe I'm here, and even in the spiritual realms, myself, my higher self, never got a clue, let's say, of everything that we are talking about. Let's just think of the different levels of the spiritual evolution that Kardec and many other spiritualists, philosophies, and religions bring to us. So then we would have to consider that because it depends on, the people. For instance, when wanderers were saying, oh, then I have to reward myself sometimes. And if I want to go and buy a jacket because I've done something, okay, if it's how the person feels and it has, he was just given an example, but it has meaning to him, to the person, then it would be okay because I have to understand myself and I have to understand my complexes. Remember, Jung talks about the complex, the inner child, other complex, the teenager that I was, the different complex that I have that are there together. We have many, many, from this point of view, many personalities. So, who needs to be rewarded? Then we go to another level of complexity. So, do I need to reward my inner child? Maybe I do, and maybe it has to be rewarded because then I'm having compassion towards myself, right, Andres? But for instance, just to give an example, for me it would be a nightmare. And when I was younger, I would love to go and every teenager go and reward myself with something like new clothes or anything like that. For me now, and as an old person, right, Andres, it would be a nightmare. It would not be a reward at all. So, for instance, my reward now that I think I've done well in my life now is to be able to be here with you guys studying Joanna, for instance, and having this wonderful group to exchange ideas. This is a reward for my ego. I'm not talking about the higher self. The higher self probably saying, okay, ego, go because it's okay. You are in the path. But for my ego, I'm talking about the standpoint of the ego, okay? So only each one of us, that's why know thyself. And this knowledge will set you free. Because then I know, is that my ego? Is that my shadow? Is that one of my complexes? So all this kind of complexity, sometimes people go a little too shallow. But I think it's okay for most of the people, and many times it's okay for us because sometimes I don't need at that moment complexity. I need just to calm down because one of my complexes is very activated or something like that. And I need to understand that maybe my spirit, even if I have all this light, as Andras was saying, as Jung says, the Christ within, the model of the higher self, and the image for many of us of the higher self is the Christ within, the symbol of the self. And maybe for some of us, will be another symbol, let's say, okay? So it's just to remember, Nadia, that we are different symbolisms, we have different needs in the spiritual, because each one of us has its own process of individuation, of how to get whole. And I think this, for Emmanuel says to Chico Xavier, that every religion, let's say, every philosophy has a small part of the truth truth with the major T, capital T, right? So I think all the paths are okay. And if at that moment I need that, let's not judge each one or not even judge different people that are trying to help us and help people. But let's just be truthful to what we feel inside. That's what I don't know if I answered you, but I think it's cool. Okay, if you know the person feels all right, but just here for our small group, we are going kind of deeper, and we know through spiritist knowledge that we're even in spirit, not only in personalities in this life, in different egos, different experiences, but we have different evolution in our spirits, different levels of evolution, and it's okay because spirits beautiful as Joanna de Angelis, for instance, that is of course much higher in her evolution than we. She's taking us with her. So people that are people, let's say people, there are in level, different levels of evolution. Each one of us brings each one together because we are all interconnected. So I would like to stop here, what I'm saying, to bring Joanna back again so that we can, thanks, Nadia. I will just start sharing again with
Thank
you.
you.
Let's see where I was. So we stopped here. Back to Joanna. So we have already asked these questions. And okay. Okay. So here Joanna says that life is inherent in everything. Attempting to define its origin or the initial impetus behind its emergence often leads to extensive philosophical and religious speculation. Recognizing life as an objective reality, as we were talking, rather than engaging in debate, serves as a pragmatic approach for addressing its presence and constitutes an important initial step. One is alive, and that is indisputable. To reject this reality is to deny one's own existence and diminish the capacity for critical thought. To live in the best possible way is the immediate challenge. Living well, enjoying the resources that nature and intelligence provide for a better life. That leads to inner fulfillment with proper ethical development, which provides inner well being. That is the reason that we should fight for. This form of achievement is consistently attained by rejecting self indulgence, initiating a pursuit of personal development and environmental change, which collectively foster a fulfilling life. Even minimal accomplishments enhance one's capacity to pursue further goals, each success opening the way for new objectives. I think Sylvia was talking about that. This ongoing progress fosters greater fulfillment and integration within the cosmic consciousness. I repeat that because that's very important. This ongoing progress fosters greater fulfillment and integration within the cosmic consciousness. So going like minimal accomplishments that going further, right? And this enhances one's capacity to pursue further goals. So being facing the challenges, remembering that we are all in a path of developing our consciousness, living these experiences to live what the soul needs, as Andres was saying. And this ongoing progress fosters greater fulfillment and integration within the cosmic consciousness. Successfully completing each stage prepares individuals for future challenges. Once a victory is experienced, motivation persists through subsequent obstacles, especially as psychological development increasingly predominates over the physiological whole. Then back to Kardec again in Genesis. He says, humanity is a collective being in which the same moral revolutions occur as in every individual being, with the difference that some take place from year to year and others from century to century. Follow humanity in its evolution through time, and you will see the life of the various races marked by periods that give each era a special character. It is one of those periods of transformation, or if you prefer, of moral growth that humanity is now experiencing in this transitional phase. And people, Kardec wrote that in the second half of the 19th century. So let's speed up, please, right, Fabricio? Let's speed up the process. What breath, the certainty of the perpetuity of one's spiritual being gives to human thoughts. What breath, the certainty of the perpetuity of one's spiritual being gives to human thought. What could be more rational, more grand, more worthy of the Creator than the law according to which spiritual life and corporeal life are merely two modes of existence, alternating for the sake of progress? What could be more just and more consoling than the idea of these same beings progressing incessantly, first through the generations of the same world, then from world to world, until perfection, without interruption? All actions, therefore, have a purpose because working for all, each one works for himself and vice versa, so that neither individual progress nor collective progress can ever be considered fruitless. Future generations and individuals will benefit from both of these advances, and they will be nothing other than past generations and individuals, but at a higher level of advancement. I think that's so beautiful. And it's summing up everything that we were saying previously, that we are all interconnected, that even when we do, as Andrews were saying, like a kind of selfish purpose, but I'm evolving and I'm doing good for myself with this understanding that whatever I do to myself, I do to others, right? And vice versa, because we are all interconnected and we are all evolving together as a collective, right? So I brought to you to finish here some quotes from my dear friend, Professor in Memoriam, Lionel Corbett, from his book, Psyche and the Sacred, Spirituality Beyond Religion. Lionel says, the potential to encounter the ultimate lies in all of us, often dormant. Our awareness that there is a larger reality is wired into the very fabric of our being, so that we have an instinctive sense of the sacred, a sense that reveals itself in our creativity, our love, our relationships, our exploration, our imagination, our desire to be whole, our passion for life, and our gratitude. Acknowledged or not, hidden by cynicism or not, our longing for peace and unity is still there. Even if we are not ready to admit it, everything else, our toys, our achievements, is a substitute. In the long run, nothing else will satisfy us. Unfortunately, however, our pain, fear, and ignorance blind us to the real nature of this yearning. Even when we realize that we are looking for spiritual satisfaction, time and again, we never quite seem to get there. Often this happens simply because we are trying to force our natural spirituality into an unsuitable artificial container. An authentic spiritual connection to the source, capital S, cannot be experienced through theological statements alone, without an experience of the source itself, through the heart and the instincts, through relationships and knowledge of oneself. Spiritual understanding cannot be handed down to us, but we can be pointed in the right direction, and we must discover it for ourselves. I think many of the people who talked today were inspired by our dear friend Lionel Corbett. I think his spirit was with us today because many of you said many things and you didn't know that I was going to put this sentence by Corbett, his thoughts. Whatever form it takes, spirituality includes the intuition or insight that there is another level of reality beyond our ordinary perception of the world. We realize that our everyday personality is not the deepest part of ourselves, that there is something more, capital M, to us. We recognize the spiritual importance of relationships and the profound mystery of the other, which is not separate from us or from that which is. We treat animals and the environment with respect because we instinctively recognize that they too are manifestations of the source. We recognize that our creative work happens through us and does not originate within our ego. We notice and value beauty, which expands our sense of self to include more than ourselves. We realize the dangers of sectarism, competitiveness, and exclusivity. This attitude is simple to articulate, but difficult to live. So we must accept that in practice, we will repeatedly forget to live it, at which times we have to remember and begin again with compassion for ourselves and without recrimination or judgment. Thanks, Lionel. And now Jung begin. See, that's a Freudian slip. So that's Jung in Mysterium Connunctionis, his collected works, book 14. To finish this moment, so long as he, the human being, knows that he is the carrier of life, and that it is therefore important for him to live, then the mystery of his soul lives also, no matter whether he is conscious of it or not. But if he no longer sees the meaning of his life in its fulfillment, and no longer believes in man's eternal right to this fulfillment, then he has betrayed and lost his soul, substituting for it a madness which leads to destruction, as our time demonstrates all too clear. So I'll stop sharing. We have like 5 minutes before our meditation, and the meditation is not going to be recorded, right? Because it's an exercise that Fabricio and I decided to start with Joanna's inspiration for us to make stronger vibration and unity of the group. But everyone that is listening to us and will be listening to us later on can meditate after they listen to this meeting, and you will be joining the group anyhow because it's out of space and time, right? So I think we have 5 minutes.
Okay.
Fabrizio, if
So
someone wants to comment.
yeah, so 5 minutes. Anyone want to raise your Zoom for a quick interaction? Sylvia?
Just very briefly, going to the last part of the quotes you gave, Anahy, about the Genesis, reminds me of what Jung said, that humanity as a whole are not going to progress, but to be individuals within humanity that will progress, and the strength of the unconscious will carry others. I thought that it sort of came together in a way, didn't it? And I just found that this text of Joanna is so special. She's really wonderful. Every time you read it, you see something different and more profound. It's wonderful to be here, to be studying with you, all of you, really. So that's all.
Thank you,
Yes,
Sylvia.
Sylvia, it's the same.
Anyone else for a quick interaction before we go into the meditation? No? I take your silent as no. So what I will do then, we will say good night to all the listeners. Thanks for being with us. I will end the recording now. Bye for now.
Bye.